Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to have you with us today.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well.
Sunny day?
We're back at the desk again, trying to sort out all falsehoods and the truths, and it's not the easiest thing in the world. You know, I keep thinking, well, why don't we just call the FBI and let them? Maybe they'll help us. Oh no, we have to investigate them too. You know?
No good guys.
Well, if we can't trust the FBI, you surely could trust the CIA.
That's right.
And then if you couldn't trust them, how about a congressional investigation set up by Nancy Pelosi? They'll get to the bottom of it, and they're getting to the bottom of this January 6th incident. And so we shouldn't have to worry so much. Well, we'll do our best to not worry, but to expose. There we go. Anyway, I want to start off with talking about the Inspector General for the Capitol Hill Police. They had to open up an investigation checking on the Capitol Hill Police themselves. There's rumors going on or evidence that's going on that something's going on with the staff, spying on the members of Congress. But we know that Pelosi wouldn't do that, except because she has this commission up. The commission she has to work on that nobody can touch is she has Republicans on there. Did you know that?
Yeah,
2 Republicans on there.
Liz Cheney.
But she didn't fulfill the description of the committee that we set up. It was to be bipartisan. So they picked 2 people who have sworn allegiance to the Republican Party and allegiance to the Democrats. So she kicks off the Republicans that were appointed and then go on with them. And then they figure, well, at least they'll be decent and allow the information that's available, the prosecution has, that is Pelosi has, that they would share it, you know, with the people on the defense, the people they're charging with treason and all of this violence and insurrection. But guess what? She's filed a lawsuit to prevent them from ever looking at it. So it's not a very American system of justice. So it's interesting. The Inspector General is looking into it. It's conceivable, you know, that he may be really serious into it. Time will tell. And but the one part that caught my attention, because we used to sit around in the office and kid, I wonder where the microphones are, and always saying it in such a way that they couldn't possibly be doing this. But here's one headline: Capitol Police spies dressed like construction workers to surveil GOP congressman's office. That's getting pretty bad, and I don't know if we can get to the bottom of this. But if there's a hint of this or evidence of this, everybody should have an obligation to do it, do something about it. And I think this will be, you know, just like Russiagate deserves to be involved in the next election. People say, just forget about it. You know, it's all over and done with. Yes, but I don't think the principle is over and done with. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to be here until we put you away in prison for life. But boy, I think the American people deserve to know what's going on and the lies that they have proven, and that there was a witch hunt going on back in over the 2016 election, lasted for years, and now they're in another one, and that has to do with the 6th of January, and yet now, once again, there's evidence of shenanigans going on. So I think, from my viewpoint, which would be not a proven finality to it, I would say there was a lot of bad things happening in the last election, you know, with the Hillary episode. And in here, very suspicious. It deserves examination. But I think we're not alone. I think the American people, more than a majority, are upset, and they do not trust what their government says. Even here, you know, I've already indicated, keep my fingers crossed. Let's hope we have some honest people here that will expose it. I believe they're still there, but it's a cost to them personally to, you know, speak out too much, just like the people go along with the wokeism because there are penalties, even though they don't believe in it.
And we reported on this earlier because it was a Politico article that talked about the Capitol Hill police were running background checks on people who were going to visit with their members of Congress, so constituents, running background checks, and also searching social media accounts of any staffer who would be present at that meeting, which is clearly inappropriate and the illegal behavior on the part of the Capitol Hill police, who really are a Praetorian Guard of the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader. That's their own personal police force. So this new information, we can put up that first clip too. This is from the Federalist. This new information is that the Inspector General has opened an investigation into the allegations of spying on members of Congress and staff. And this includes a very peculiar accusation by Troy Nehls, who is, I think he had part of your old district. He's from Texas. And he made a very, very serious claim. And here, I'll just kind of give a nutshell as to what it is. And you can put on that second clip while I'm mentioning it. So apparently, the protocol is if Capitol Hill cop sees a member's office open, they'll go in and look around and make sure everything's okay. I think that sounds reasonable because you don't know who could be in there. But apparently, when they were in there checking to see if things were okay, they saw a couple things that looked interesting to them. So they took photographs of these things, this legislative information, in the member's office, brought it back to Capitol Hill intelligence, the police intelligence, and they started looking into it. So what was it? What was it all about? They thought they really had a smoking gun and Troy Nehls was planning another insurrection. Well, there was a reference to body armor, and that's what really got them freaked out. However, when you look at the actual story, this was a whiteboard that they had in their office where they talked about legislative priorities. The problem is there was some faulty Chinese body armor that I think was involved with a Texas company, and they were, his staff and he were brainstorming about this. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to fix this problem? So you can take that down now. So that was number one. When they saw body armor, they started taking pictures. And then the other thing was there was a map of the Rayburn building with an X in front of one exit. Well, it turns out that was a map, according to Nell's office, that was a crude map they drew for an intern on how to find the ice machine, right? They couldn't find the ice machine. So it's very, very serious. They go in and they take these photos, and then they run back to Capitol Hill Intelligence and say, we got something on this guy. And not only that, Dr. Paul, but a couple of days later, they came back in undercover dressed as construction workers and started interrogating Nell's staff about it, which, I spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill. This is unbelievable. It's hard to imagine that this really happened, although I guess in the post-January 6th world, everything has changed. But I find it very shocking. Hopefully the Inspector General is a truly independent body and will truly get to the bottom of it rather than whitewash it. But something is seriously wrong here, Dr. Paul.
I agree with that for sure, and I think that eventually the truth will come out. It took a long time to get a good feel for the truth about the Russiagate and the Hillary involvement. And now it's just starting. Let's hope it goes a little bit faster. Let's hope that there's an honest investigation, but we don't know that for sure, but at least there's a start in that direction. But to me, it's not really complicated because there's enough evidence out and everybody knows it, but they just deny it. Doesn't matter. And that is the two things that I've already mentioned. One is the way the committee was put together.
Yeah.
This is not a real committee. That's a farce.
Yeah.
To have the Republicans appoint somebody, then throw them off the committee and put two people whose allegiance are to the Democrats and call this a fair deal. And then the other thing is the evidence. The prosecution, the defense is not allowed to see the films.
Yeah.
And I think, the only term that comes to my mind with this is a mistrial.
Yeah,
but there's no mistrial under these circumstances. The only person who could call it off and call it a mistrial would be Pelosi, and I predict she won't do it.
Yeah, I predict not either. Well, let's look at a couple of the congressman's tweets because he probably puts it in a better nutshell than I did, if we can. And these just came out yesterday. He said, the Capitol Police Intelligence Division investigated my office illegally, and one of my staffers caught them in the act. And then he says it was November 20th in 2021. Capitol Police entered his office without his knowledge and photographed confidential legislative products protected by the speech and debate clause, et cetera, et cetera. Go to the next one. And so then 2 days later, he said, on the 22nd, Thanksgiving week, 3 intelligence officers attempted to enter the office while the House was in recess. Said, upon discovering a member of my staff, special agents dressed like construction workers began to question him on the contents of a photograph taken illegally 2 days later. The other thing that this brings up, Dr. Paul, is what business does the Intelligence Division of the Capitol Hill Police have going undercover, dressed as construction workers, who knows what else they dress as, going into members' offices under false pretense to investigate and spy on them? It's really, really sick. The first thing that came to mind is, well, I hope when Republicans take over in November, they'll put a stop to this. But then I actually got sane again, and I realized they love this. They're going to love this power. So instead of saying we got to cut this out, they're going to say, ooh, we're going to use this on the Democrats.
We'll check. If they happen to have made a few minor mistakes, we'll correct that.
Yeah,
yeah. It's a real pity, because I think where we stand in our legislative process, our financial system, the standards of morality of the individuals in Washington, it's so bad that it's mostly a contest between who can tell the biggest lie with the straightest face, and that goes on constantly. Even though we cannot take it away, we do have a handful of friends there that are there for the right reason, and I keep hoping that, whether it's the FBI or the Department of Justice, or even in the courts, we've come across a few, judges that are ruling with a good sense, on these COVID trials. So they're not the enemy doesn't have 100% control, but it seems like they have 100% of the message, the media message. Yeah. And but this is why I've always argued there has to be an alternative. The founders had to use pamphleteering. Yeah. And right now we may be pushed to using pamphlets because they're gonna control the internet.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to move on to the next topic, and this is great news, Dr. Paul. Well, it's great news if you have Pfizer stock. Let's look at this next. This is from Axios. This came out today. If we can look at that next clip. A new top-selling medicine, Pfizer's COVID vaccine. Surprise, surprise. Go to the next one. It's great news for people in the business. Pfizer registered a $36.8 billion in sales in 2021 from its COVID-19 vaccine. This vaccine is now officially the top-selling pharmaceutical product ever in a single year by a huge margin.
And they want it to go up, and it looks like it's going to go up. It hasn't stopped, because even if they overproduce, which is always possible, and nobody wants them, they can't even. Just think how earlier on they were paying people to take it. Yeah. Up to $100. Yeah. Go take your shot, and we'll give you $100.
Have a beer, have a sausage.
Used to be that if you wanted a shot, you'd find your $5 and pay for it. Yeah. But that's not the case. And right now they're planning to make $54 billion in this fiscal year. So it's moving up. And did you say you bought stock?
No,
but what we need to do, we probably could have known about this if we'd have just watched Nancy Pelosi's trades that she was making, and the ones that she reports. Yeah. So she probably has a little bit of that stock, and a few other politicians or insiders will have it. But the big guys, the military-industrial complex, the people who control the Federal Reserve and the whole business, they had a few shares of this stock, I'm sure.
And I'm not a stock person, but if I were, I would still be wary, because remember, they wanted to hold off on their documents for 75 years. They don't look at don't check our notes, and they've been pushed now. They don't have that much time. You got to release these documents. So, these bubbles that can be blown up like this can burst as well. So I guess we're ready to move on to the next one, and this is someone we haven't seen in a few days, Dr. Paul. It's Walensky, CDC, and put that one up, and Dr. Paul, go ahead, and unless you wanted to talk more about Pfizer.
I wanted to make one more comment about Pfizer, because Pfizer makes the money. It's a rigged system. They make huge profits, and the stockholders do real well. But I think where the big stuff is behind the scenes. The fact that we send these billions and billions of dollars to these companies that, and the part that they still think is quasi-legal, this went through the conference, we appropriated that money, and it went to these companies, and it's just routine practice. And then, of course, you have the incidence of people actually benefiting because they know this trades will go on, and they think there should be more control of the members of Congress with buying and selling. But it's a bigger problem. Another rule is not going to deal with the big problem. You have to expose the deep state, and you have to have people understand and agree that the FBI and the CIA and others are involved, and this is a bigger problem, but it's morally it's the same thing. But some of it's considered perfectly okay.
Yeah.
That's the way we do business. So. And you had one also coming up here.
Well, we wanted to do the one on the CDC now. They're trying to get back into the limelight. And if we can put up that next clip. CDC stands by its K through 12 school masking guidance as states relax the rules. So they're trying to recapture the narrative, I think, Dr. Paul. They're saying, hey, these kids, you got to still wear your masks. You got to still wear your masks. And this is the blue state governors now are relaxing or eliminating mask mandates.
This is like schizophrenia in medicine.
Yeah.
Political schizophrenia. Everything's breaking loose this morning. Just a few glances at the television, even those other stations that you wouldn't think has one grain of sense. Things are getting better now, and we're going to have to do it. Somebody said it has something to do with election coming up, and
they wouldn't do that, would they?
Change their image, and so. But the whole thing of things. Well, even when things weren't so bad, it was schizophrenic because they were acting like they were hysterical over how bad this was. And now that things are really getting better, they say, yes, we can move in that right direction, except for the danger to the children.
Yeah.
So we have to protect the children. And of course, the children essentially have never been endangered. So it's not good policy. Government agents aren't very good. Politicians aren't very good at practicing it. Bureaucrats are even worse. And they make a lot of mistakes. And there's no liability, no responsibility, because they've removed that. They've guaranteed that anybody that does any of these things has no responsibility for it. So it's a bad system. But right now, there's some good news here, is that they're being forced to say, the American people are waking up, and that's why we're seeing the break in what's happening in Canada, and all of a sudden it's Canada that is setting a standard that other people are starting to follow.
Yeah, remember when the red state governors like DeSantis and to a lesser degree Abbott started saying we don't need these restrictions, we don't need all these mandates. And what did they say in the blue states and what did they say in the CDC? You got to follow the science, you got to follow the science. They're not following the science. Well, now we have New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, California, and Oregon, blue states, as blue as you can get, all dropping the school mask mandate. But the CDC still says that the science says you have to keep the masks on the kids. So the question is, why are these blue states now refusing to follow the science?
Wonder what's going on. I have this item here about the towing companies.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to do Saskatchewan next. But
okay, I got that.
That's actually just a clip, and it's a clip of the premier of Saskatchewan, and it's actually
we saw a great speech.
It's a great speech, and it's about a minute long. It actually is number one, not number two, as I suggested. If we can put up the number one, this is Scott Moe. He's the premier of Saskatchewan, making a very important announcement. That first video clip labeled number one, if we could play that, I think the first minute of that would do, if we have that up there. Here we go. Let's listen to a first minute of Scott Moe, the premier of Saskatchewan.
Let's not judge our neighbor because they may be vaccinated or because they may not be vaccinated. Let's not judge our neighbor if they should choose to wear a mask or not to choose to wear a mask in the weeks ahead. Whenever someone is doing their own personal risk assessment, which we have asked them to do in this province for a period of time now, they're doing that assessment for themselves, possibly for their family, and they may come back with a different decision than what you might arrive at. And that different conclusion, albeit maybe different from where you have landed, should not be judged. It should be respected, and it should be accepted. It's time for each of us as individuals now to make a conscious effort to treat everyone in our daily lives that we encounter equally.
You know, what I liked about
It's
this
also time for the proof of
is
vaccination mandate.
in the middle of all that, he understands some basic principles, and I suspect he knows them and he understands them. I don't think his speech, I don't believe he doesn't believe in what he was saying and that somebody wrote this speech.
Yeah.
I believe it just came across authentic. And what I liked about it, he talked about people should take their own risk, and
Yeah.
I've mentioned that, and you agree that that's part of what liberty is all about. That the government can't protect us against ourselves, or it becomes a total nightmare, and that's what's going on, of course, with COVID. So that you should accept your own risk and accept and deal with it. And of course, this is a principle of self-ownership and self-responsibility. And then he used the word something implied, and make your decision and live with it.
Live with it, yeah.
It's you're the one that made the decision, and you use your own judgment. So they're very, very good statement and doing the right thing. So I was delighted that we could call that attention to our viewers.
And I think what that also shows that the truckers are winning, because he wouldn't have done this. As good of a guy as he might be, he also was in charge of presiding over these restrictions. So he would not have done this if it weren't for the truckers. And in fact, the Premier of Alberta tried to do the same thing. He went up and made a big deal out of, we're getting rid of our restrictions. Then less than 24 hours, he kind of slunk back up there and said,
Right.
except for A, B, C, D, and E.
Yeah,
so, but it just shows that the momentum is with the truckers, and it's only a matter of time. I don't know if you noticed, I watched Trudeau before Parliament yesterday. He was getting grilled by the opposition. Suddenly he didn't sound that confident. So we'll see. I think it's only a matter of time, and hopefully they'll hold out. They should not compromise until they get what they want. But now, we want to talk about the towing companies. And let's actually move ahead, skip the Fauci one, and move ahead to the towing companies clip if we can. And Dr. Paul, go ahead if you want to.
Okay, well, I found this fascinating because the people sent there by the government, the so-called enemy, to clean up this mess and get these highways opened up. The drivers and the tow companies, I think they had sympathies elsewhere, and they joined it. But there was another statement made about this that is a little bit annoying, because the left is very good at capturing whatever it is and flipping it and blame you for that. And this is what they're doing. This discomfort they have in Canada with this nonviolent civil disobedience is equivalent to, really, really a hostile insurrection and violent takeover. And that implying that what they were doing up there was equivalent to Alinsky's advice. This is the way you get to power. You create a chaos in the streets. And I was thinking, yes, it is. There's traffic jams up there. But what about the chaos in the inner cities? Well, how many, 8 months last year, in this country? And the police totally ignored it. The only response they had was, defund the police so they don't have a prayer of being able to do anything. So no, I think this is good. So they've switched allegiance. I hope they don't get punished, but you can't ever tell.
Well, that clip we had was from the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company. But I want to add a little bonus clip to this, Dr. Paul, because not only are the tow truck companies saying, you know what, we're not going to tow you, we're going to join you, but they put out a little notice, the Ottawa police, saying if you bring gasoline to these truckers, you're going to get arrested. Watch and see what the Canadians did. Let's look at that second video clip if we can. And I think we want the whole clip played. They said, if you bring them gas, you're going to get arrested. Look what the Canadians did. Those are all gas cans, Dr. Paul. Everyone went out and grabbed gas cans and brought them to the truckers. So that is an amazing clip, I think. If you bring them gas, you're going to get arrested. And the whole town said, oh yeah? Try to arrest us all.
That whole episode and how it happened, it's, who did this? Who was the central economic planner? Where was that office? Where did the bureaucrats get this? It's so well organized. Well, this might have something to do with the invisible hand. You know, that things happen when you have people energized and have an agreement on doing something. And no, that's, I think,
it's a great clip,
neat.
very uplifting clip. Well, do you want to, let's move on to that next clip, and you want to talk a little about something you saw in Politico.
Yes, the blame now is that COVID, it says violent crimes to labor shortages. Mayors say COVID did all this, and it's far reaching. COVID had something to do with it, but it was the hysterical overreaction by government and a lot of other people engaged, whether it's from the government, the bureaucracy, to the media, to the university professors, and to some physicians, to a lot of physicians who were just antagonistic and challenging the whole concept of natural immunity, for instance. But I hear that some of the left now is changing their tune on there. I guess maybe we won the public opinion on this. But this is amazing. They didn't. The way I read this is I didn't see too much blame put on the people on the lockdown. The people who locked down. You already mentioned maybe some of these people who are shifting. They were the ones that did the lockdown. I think we had a little bit of that here in our own state.
Yep.
You know, where they join and then they switch sides when reality sets in. So I think this is good. It's a conversion. It's sometimes a little bit late, but it's still, if they're going to change their tune, we take advantage of it. But I think if this continues, and maybe they'll achieve what they want. They want the lockdown to not even be an issue in this year's election. I don't think they can get that far. I don't think they can clean up their act between now and November and say, well, it had nothing to do with violence in the street, had nothing to do with lockdown, had nothing to do with defunding the police, nothing to do with releasing vicious prisoners that have committed vicious crimes and turn them loose and then recommit the same crimes that they were arrested for. No, I don't think it's going to be forgotten very easily.
Yeah, and our colleague Chris Rossini did a great article. We have it up on ronpaulinstitute.org website where he talks about what's going to happen. And I was never for the mask. I was never for the lockdowns, and that's what we're seeing now. And if you're an optimist like you are, you would say that's a good sign. If you're a pessimist like I am, you'd say they're trying to get away with it.
Right.
But I got a couple of quick little closing clips,
good.
and I know you want to mention some things in your closing, but I just want to put up that next clip. I haven't done this in a while, but this is Ian Miller. He used to cover his name, and now he's in the open. He has a book out. We've covered his stuff for a long time. If we can put up that chart, because this is go to the next one. Sorry, Ian Miller has done a lot of amazing work, and he should get a lot of credit for what he's done. But here's a chart. What's great about Austria's N95 mandates, lockdowns for the unvaccinated, and widespread vaccine passports is that their results have been worse than Sweden. So not only are their policies harmful and discriminatory, they're completely useless too. And here's a chart. Cumulative deaths attributed to COVID-19 in Sweden and Austria per 100,000. Austria, which has become a full-blown police state, is actually doing worse than Sweden that did not close down. And this is why, if you put up that next clip, you're going to see a lot more of this going on. And this is a left-wing Republican or a Democrat representative from New York. Instead of saying that the virus got a virus, now they're saying the Democrats' plan to fight COVID is working. Cases are down and vaccines are available. Now it's time, listen to this, Dr. Paul, this is the thing that really flips people out, and me too. Now it's time to give people their lives back, as if our lives were theirs to take and they can give them back when they want. We're going to see a lot more of this. They can't get away with it.
Yeah, they don't understand the fundamentals. Obviously, their fundamental is we own you.
Yeah,
we're going to control you, and we're going to move you along. And all of a sudden, we have a significant impact of cultural Marxism, which is getting pretty bad in this country. But it has to be challenged, and we try to challenge that every single day.
Yeah, I'm done, Dr. Paul.
Okay, I want to mention the famous Speaker of the House that is in office right now. And Pelosi, I knew her, and we visited and debated each other at times on foreign policy, if more than anything else. But the other day, of course, her first advertisement was when she was supporting all these laws of wearing masks and all, and she cheated on that, and that knocked her down a few points, and she had to be more careful. But now she's bold. There's no doubt about it. I mean, she is bold with her power, and it was very much out in the open. There's so many ways that members of Congress steal by influence, behind the scenes on how you do them a deal, and all of a sudden you get kickbacks and all this thing. But she bought and sold and made a lot of money on the stocks. Her husband was involved. So there started, even from the Democrats, now probably were a little jealous they didn't have as much money. They, we got to stop this insider trading, and she opposed it. So she, no, we don't. It's not that bad. Besides, she says, what's wrong? This is crazy. She says, what's wrong with me being able to participate in the free market system? This is profits, and this is what America is all about. This is what Congress and a lot of Americans, it's all about. But that doesn't make it right, I'll tell you. So they're working on a law now, and they think passing a law is going to make a difference. But a law is going to be irrelevant. It's sort of like all of a sudden Congress passing a law, which they do, and tell the Federal Reserve what to do. And that's so it's like writing a law and saying to the CIA, thou shalt not ever participate in another coup in the next 100 years. Who knows? They just do what they want anyway. So I think that the laws, some of them, I guess you have to have some rules, but it's tragic because there's so many opportunities. And the problem is the government's too big, too much money, they have too much control, there's too much room for benefits to occur. And then you have the other factor that there's a few people that end up in Washington that don't have a good set of standard of values, and they're willing to do it. So if you had a few opportunities, but you had people of character that wouldn't steal from the people and be very strict with themselves, that wouldn't be a problem either. So to me, on things like this, the real solution is to make government very small, shrink the size of government. As long as government is this big, and you have the military industrial complex and all these other things, there's always this opportunity for them to figure out something. And the bigger problem, of course, is, we're talking about blatantly being dishonest about what they're doing. But just the whole process is dishonest. It's what Bastiat called plunder. It's designed to have democracy where you steal from one group and give to another and you get reelected, and it's above board. Everybody, that's the way the system works. So it's a mess. But believe me, if you deal with this philosophically, it usually boils down for me to the point is government is too big, it's out of control, and we're on the verge of the declaration of a total bankruptcy of this country, and that will include a moral bankruptcy as well. It can be avoided by us emphasizing and others joining us in this effort to promote peace and prosperity by emphasizing the importance of personal liberty. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Please come back soon.